legacy of the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad Park, which we celebrate here today, is a testament, an oasis to truth. So may everything that we do here seek after truth. May everything that we do here inspire us to stand up for truth. That is something that each one of us has the capacity to do.
This weekend is a festival honoring Harriet Tubman Emancipation Day, International Underground Railroad Month, and 2024 Maryland's Year of Civil Rights.
National historic sites like those in Tuskegee and those here are the crown jewels of America. They have been determined by Congress and by the people to be those things that express the very best that we are and the best that we can be. That's why places like this must exist. We must visit them. We must expand upon what they do in their outreach, exploring and celebrating particularly African American National Historic Site.
We are a big National Park Service. We are a big bureau under the Department of Interior, 431 parks, I believe. But we are small when it comes to helping each other out. We are located here with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. Therefore, we are considered a partnership park. And down the road, Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge is a legislative partner as well. When we have these annual commemorations, we come together because it takes all of us to really put on something like this.
To understand American history, this is the history you need to know. You need to be here to understand what came about before us to understand where we want to be next. This whole weekend, we're spending talking about what it means to be free and following the footsteps of those that have helped to create freedom for us. Today, we're really talking about Harriet Tubman. She didn't just seek freedom for herself, and she didn't just seek freedom for her family. In fact, she came back onto this landscape seeking freedom for others 13 separate times.
This is where Harriet Tubman was born and raised, so her first 27 years were spent here in Dorchester before her escape in 1849. Harriet Tubman was 5 feet tall, 5 feet 0. This is a short woman, even by 1849 standards. She had a severe head injury as a teenager.
When she was 12 years old, she went to the store, the general store, and there was another enslaved person that was trying to leave. And so she was trying to kind of like step aside so he could get out.
An overseer threw a lead weight at another runaway slave. It accidentally hit Harriet in the head, and it actually caused a severe brain injury, which was probably causing temporal lobe epilepsy. And yet, she persevered, not only helped countless others, but built her own life and legacy that extends far beyond herself.
Aunt Harriet's father was a timberman, and he would teach her about the landscape, how to read it, how to navigate it, and things that she had to endure helped her to be able to do what she did later. This is her stomping grounds. This is what she saw, and this is where she walked. And if you go out a little bit more further down the road, not far from here where we are, you'll see tree-lined forests on each side of the road. And there's nothing else there but the forest. It's so peaceful. It's so beautiful. You can feel her presence here and the community that was around her.
We made sure that we had performers and presenters from the community, from the region. That made it so very special. And we had ladies from the island of Antigua and Barbuda who conducted workshops. They held a Harriet Tubman Emancipation doll workshop where anyone who wanted to buy a doll kit sat with them and they demonstrated and showed them how they could make their own customized Harriet Tubman topsy-turvy doll.
The reason why we call it a topsy-turvy doll is because on one side you get a full doll that kind of represents one part of her life, and then on the other side you see another form of Harriet. This one more so is dedicated to her time in the Union Army.
Back in the day, there used to be a flip doll that was disgracefully referred to as a mammy doll. And on one side of the doll was a woman of African descent, where it was an apron covered with little babies that clearly of African descent. And when you flipped the doll, on her apron strings were babies of white, sort of European descent. So the message was implicit in the doll, and the women of Antigua and Barbuda worked with the women at the Water's Edge Museum and said, this is enough, and we're going to create an empowerment doll.
Customers have the option to either buy their own pre-made doll or buy a kit. They are given a sort of shell of the doll, which kind of looks like a hollow gingerbread man, and they're able to stuff the doll. After that, they get to dress the doll as if you were to dress your own doll when you were younger. The importance of the accessories is that they tell different stories of Harriet Tubman. The star represents the fact that she would use the North Star to guide her to freedom. The shawl actually represents the connection between the United States, or more so the Eastern Shore, and the Caribbean. So this is a way of educating people not only on Harriet Tubman, but also we found that a lot of people from the Eastern Shore actually have Caribbean descent within their genealogy. So this is I believe is a great way of not only symbolizing that, but educating people.
My walk with Harriet Tubman began in the 4th or 5th grade in Baltimore City. We learned more about Christopher Columbus because our school was named after him. But during this time, they had Negro History Week, Negro History Day, Negro History Afternoon. And they were going to have Harriet Tubman front and center. And I raised my hand and said I wanted to be Harriet Tubman because I knew more about Harriet Tubman than the teacher or anybody in that classroom. But the teacher decided to give the role of Harriet Tubman to a white girl in our class and told me and the others that we were going to crawl on our knees behind her to Canada. So I said, ma'am, Miss Teacher, from where she came from, Maryland, Eastern Shore, Chesapeake Bay, everywhere I saw water, and I don't know how anybody's going to crawl all the way to Canada on their knees to get to freedom.
What this center is doing, we're telling the history, spreading that history, so that it's not just history for us as African Americans to know, but it's also for other cultures around the world to know. They can try to ban it in schools, ban it in books, but we can still talk, we can still share, and it's up to us as individual African Americans to keep that going.
I think what anyone can find when they look at the life of Harriet Tubman is that you find a person who, with all of the deprivations and the difficulties and the horrific circumstances of enslavement, came to realize her own worth as a human being, her own worth from the spiritual empowerment that she received. And guided by that, she set about to emancipate herself and seek her own freedom by herself, but then come back 13 times into great danger and great risk to free others so that they too could know the exhilaration of being a free human being.
I'm Valerie Still. I am a descendant of the great father of the Underground Railroad, as they call him, William Still. He's my great-great-grand uncle. Worked closely with Harriet Tubman in the 1800s.
I'm Shelton Huggins. I am a direct descendant of Harriet Tubman. She is my great-great-great aunt. And we're here currently at the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad Visiting Center.
Sheldon, who is a magnificent artist, came up with this idea of creating a temporary basketball court where they could tie in the legacy of their ancestors with team building for the kids, empowerment for the kids.
And so what we want to do is bring kids in and give them a message of dreaming, believing, never quitting. They're superstars, but at the same time, like Harriet Tubman, if they get their mind set, they're pure positive power, unlimited energy. And then we do a little basketball clinic because everybody likes to play.
And it was a big hit. We had more than kids out there playing on that basketball court.
Seeing different people from the community today coming out, smiling, having fun. And a basketball court is just like the barbershop. It's like one of those places where people are going to naturally just kind of gravitate towards and have fun.
Last year, I was driving through Cambridge, which is the county seat here in Dorchester County, and the county courthouse sits predominantly right there in the center of town, and there's a Harriet Tubman statue there, which was just recently planted 2 years ago. There was a large group of young people gathered around the statue, which is very unusual because usually it's just a very, very quiet place. There's never anybody there. I asked one of the young people, a young lady, what's going on here? What are you guys doing? And she told me that she was a 19-year-old exchange student from Seville, Spain, learning about Harriet Tubman. And I said to her, okay, what have you learned? Looks me in the eye, a total stranger, me, looks me in the eyes. He says, never give up.
My mom is from this region, and we learned about Harriet Tubman from my mom. I'm actually sitting here with a pin that my mother gave me a very long time ago. It was amazing because when I was selected for this position, and I said, I'm going to wear that pin every time I possibly can with my uniform. Her legacy is one that we should never forget, ever, ever, because it speaks to more than just her being an African American. It speaks to more of her being born into slavery. She was a naturalist, and there was a reason that she was a naturalist, because that was her freedom. Navigating these landscapes and these tributaries and these marshes, they were her freedom.
Harriet Tubman was baptized in salt and brackish water on this Chesapeake Bay. That was her early beginnings, and she never lost contact with her early beginnings, and even in her storytelling about wanting to go back for her parents, go back for her siblings, go back for her friends. And what she also told people is that man may never thank you, but God will bless you, because she felt that God never let her down. And just the faith that she carried with her kept her going.
I think perhaps more than anything else, I would like people to find self-empowerment in the life and legacy of Harriet Tubman, rescuing people from slavery as she did, and participating in the Combahee River Raid in South Carolina, where she freed those 700 slaves, and then her abolition activities in Auburn, New York, and the women's suffrage movement that she was participating in up in Boston and in New York after the Civil War. All of those activities that she was involved in throughout her entire life were really about self-empowerment, the urgency and the need for each of us to seize our own agency, to empower ourselves, to free ourselves.
She's democracy. I mean, democracy being just equal rights, being freedom. She said, this is what Mr. Lincoln ought to know. He can't win this war if he doesn't free the enslaved and then let them fight. So you free them, that's freedom. You let them fight next to the white soldier, that's equality. Stand up and fight. Let your voice be heard. I mean, take advantage of the country that we live in. She didn't talk about it. She just did it. Whatever was needed, she did it. You talking about a patriot? That's her.
Everything about Harriet Tubman tells us that life and worth really have little to do with what's on the outside. Everything has to do with the character that's on the inside.
2, 3, hey!
What has really happened more is majority people have been given the dollars and the resources to tell the minority story. And here's what I say, we need to flip the script, because I think that we have the intellect to tell our own stories, elevate our own voices, and tell the story, as my book calls it, through ebony eyes. We can tell our own story, and as James Brown said, don't give me nothing, open the door and I'll get it myself.
Well, that's a mic drop moment. Thank you, sir.